of the Target Score Brampton podcast. Your host, filling in for Matt again. It's me, D. And coming to us back-to-back like Jordan in 96, 97, the king of the slap bomb, Joey Slattery. Thanks for taking the time to be here with me today.
Is this permanent? Am I here permanently now?
I think, like I said, Bonomi's still on a sabbatical right now, and I think we may have lost him for good because he's on his vacation right now, and he doesn't seem to want to come back.
That's too funny. No, I'm happy to be here, but I'm like, man, I'm not sure if Matt's ever coming back from Vancouver.
You know what? Today's special, though. We get to share a core memory. You know, we're both coming off of Canada's historic win yesterday, recording on a Monday. So I get to share with you in a little bit of reflection. Where were you for the game? Did you get to see the finish? And how elated are folks in Winnipeg?
Sorry, what game is this? Is there another big tournament happening? Am I missing something here?
It's called football in Europe. They kick the ball around.
Like the big brown ball, right? That kind of has that odd shape. Yeah. No, I did watch the game. It's funny. I'm not a massive soccer guy. And even like the first round of games, like I didn't because the Sea Bears were playing too. So like I should preface this with like it was unfortunate timing for like a viewership standpoint for me. But I watched the second half of the Switzerland game where then I thought I cursed the team because within the first minute Switzerland scores after a scoreless first half and then they went up 2-0 and, you know, it was an exciting game, whatever. But I truly got sucked into it as a soccer fan. I was a good soccer fan for about 2 hours the other day watching that game. And, you know, I was just watching it at home, which is funny, D. I was going to do groceries instead.
Take advantage of the fact that everyone's at home in front of a television. Yeah. You're like, the grocery stores will be empty. I'm going to be efficient right now.
And it was perfect. It was between the two games that day, like the two CBL games. So we were going to go between the games. And then I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe I want to watch this. Like, this is historic. And, you know, it does seem like it's bringing the country together. I will say, like, I can't speak for all the prairies, but like in Winnipeg, it's not a big deal. Like, I've not seen many flags. I haven't seen many Canada soccer things. Like, honestly, if I wasn't watching the news or watching the game itself, like I don't think I've been keeping up through like news, like the CBC News or whatever, like just like the highlights and talking to fans.
CBC. Great
but
job,
it has been like I think in Vancouver and Toronto, it's totally different vibes than the rest of the country. I know Edmonton's pretty excited because they've hosted games for Team Canada, but like Canada's never been here. Like, you know what I mean? Like they brought the World Cup trophy like one day and it was like a cross country tour, but like I don't think the fandom is like we're all cheering for Canada, but it's not like as intense as it looks on TV in the other places. But I just watched it on my couch. It was an awesome game. I'm glad to see that you know that they came through because it's wild to think that, you know, our whole lives up until the last World Cup, Canada wasn't even in it. Like they were in it before I was born. And, you know, then the fact they were in it was really cool. And I think even this year was just kind of like, oh, they made it to the knockout stage. Like, that's awesome. Kind of not expecting anything more. So now this is a huge surprise. And I think even in the round of 16, though, like I was getting frustrated where I thought they belonged there. Like I wasn't like happy with the silver lining that they just made it, you know, as a diehard, 3-day soccer fan. But now I'm like, if they get knocked out the next round, like it's a huge win for Canada regardless. Like I think now they're truly playing with house money. Like they've accomplished so much. So I'm looking forward to the next to the round of 16, whoever they play. But no, it was really cool to see, and it was really nice that it just happened to be scheduled perfectly between the two CBL games. So I had a good sports day on Sunday.
No, you and I are in the same boat in regards to the sport of soccer. Like I won't watch a second outside of the World Cup, but you know, between the degenerate gambler that I am, the sports betting that I like to dabble in, and watching the World Cup, I definitely watch a lot more. It definitely goes up a tick, and it was just also a great excuse to get together with friends. And like I went to last week, Adidas has like a pop-up of Stack Market here in Toronto. And I went to that, and it was very infectious. Like it's funny, they had like this influencer hub where you could watch inside with all these televisions, or you could be outside with the crowd watching on the big screen. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be outside the whole time. I didn't spend a second inside watching it.
What VIP influencer D wasn't in the VIP lounge? What world are we living? Yeah, VID. What are we living in, man? What world are we in?
But yeah, it's like I even like I get FOMO every time I see these massive crowds. I'm also just too old to be standing out there for 2 2-3 consecutive hours now. But it was good that we made an excuse to have a barbecue, had friends over, and like me, a lot of people, a lot of folks don't watch soccer on the regular, but you just can't help to kind of want to be a part of the experience. And it was cool. And I know a lot of people that have been longtime soccer fans, and so it's funny. I think we both listen to Bill Simmons, and he always is, one of his playoff manifestos is like, worry about the team that celebrates too early. And we kind of saw that with Victor Wembanyama when they beat OKC. He was crying, and it was just like, was that their championship? Was that good enough for them? Obviously, they wanted to win the championship, and they were heartbroken at the end of the day in the NBA Finals. But with Canada, it was just crazy to see them crying and how happy they were. And they were just like exuded all that energy and all that celebration. And it's like, do you have enough left for Morocco or Netherlands, which won't be an easy matchup for them?
Well, I mean, hey, they came around on a quick turnaround for this one too, right? Wasn't even a full week off between games. They had to travel from Vancouver to LA. I will say, like, Alphonso Davies, like pretty much the only player that anybody truly knows, like the real household name of the team. Man, like as soon as he got in, that's where it felt like, oh, they're gonna win. Like it just felt like all of a sudden,
way more
like
aggressive.
South Africa didn't have any answer. Like they were just so aggressive. He draws so much attention. Like it was crazy to see, even as someone who doesn't watch the game intently, how much the game changed just by having him on the floor, right? And we have those guys in the CBL, but it's just, when you see it, like Alphonso Davies, a guy who is, from Edmonton, he's a Canadian that like is a true threat internationally, was really cool to see. And no, it was all part of a great sports weekend, man. I'm jealous of you because you got to watch it in some fancy schmancy Adidas house. I get invited.
That
to
wasn't
my couch,
Sunday. That was last week. But yeah,
oh, okay, whatever. It's hard to
yesterday.
keep up with your celebrity schedule, D. It's tough. I'm here trying to just keep track of where's D today. We talk about Matt's Carmen Sandiego. You're just hopping around from VIP event to VIP event. But you were also in Scarborough. You had the sidelines for.
This is exactly what the people came for on this podcast, the Target Score Soccer podcast. That's a wrap on there.
Minutes to talk basketball.
But the highs of high on Sunday, but both of us were victims on Super Saturday. Unfortunately, your Sea Bears came up short against Vancouver. We can talk about that at the tail end, but we're going to start with Brampton. They went on the road at Scarborough. It was, the two best teams in the East, at least record-wise. Brampton came in that game 4-game losing streak, now extended to 5, losing 82-69, and which was a really, 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 really ugly game.
It was.
Joey. At halftime was 38-28. Scarborough shot 34% from the field. This is the whole game. Brampton shot 28% from the field. It was, you said that in the group chat. You're like, it's been 2 minutes. I was not expecting this. This wasn't on my bingo card.
It was crazy. Like, it was just like from the hop. It's just, I don't know if guys are too charged up for this game or what, but yeah, it was more of a slog than I was expecting, which maybe isn't surprising because they're the two top teams in the conference. But I was kind of expecting a little bit more of a shootout, and it really turned into a block party, as Rod Black repeatedly said on the broadcast. Right, like there was 17 blocks total. I think I was trying to pull it up. I had it pulled up here. For Scarborough had 12, was it? Yeah, they had 12 blocks. Right. Yeah, and then 5 for Brampton. Like I was impressed with the defensive effort on both ends. Like I don't think it was just on poor shooting. I think there was a lot of disruption. I mean, Sean East was struggling so hard, at times to take the ball inside. I mean, he's a small guard, right? But he, it's just I feel like in this game, for a long time, I was saying, Scarborough is very, Powell heavy in terms of scoring. Frank Mitchell is a beast inside, but I'm always focusing on the offense, right? And I really put it around those two players. And I think what we're learning with Scarborough is they're a lot deeper than initially, anticipated with these guys. They can play defense. Like, I think if you're any team in the CBL right now, you're thinking, all right, we have to have a good shooting day, and we're probably going to have to depend on the three a little bit more than we'd like to, simply because their shot blocking right now is just insane. They have too many athletes, too many big guys inside that it's just, and they crowd the key so well whenever, there's a drive inside. And defensively, I thought they were very sound, and they made things very difficult for Brampton. But I do think the score is a true reflection. I mean, Brampton kept it close, in the second quarter. They, Scarborough started, trickling away. Brampton fights back, and, they're down 12, they're down 6, but like Scarborough did a great job at keeping them at arm's length. Just,
Yeah.
as soon as they got in, it was just like, okay, we're going to stop here. We're going to get a run of, 4-6 points and just keep them at the wayside. And unfortunately for Brampton, just not able to get over the hump and complete that comeback. And I think, if you get a lead later in the game, it changes everything. But, once Scarborough got that lead, they never really relinquished it.
And we haven't even mentioned that Miles got ejected in the second quarter, right? I
Which,
think that
yes,
was like, right, that there was a ray of light for the Brampton Honey Badgers in terms of having maybe not an easier time, but not having to deal with Powell in the second half of this basketball game. But you said it, like Scarborough had them in a steel cage the entire game defensively. I mean, rebounded. You talked about the blocks. They out rebounded them 73-51. Frank the Tank Mitchell with the new league record of 22 rebounds in that game. Bediako and Amir Sims both had 10 rebounds each. And then you mentioned Shawnee's 14 points, 5 of 18 shooting. Like he just could not get his shot off. And it's just like whenever he would evade one defender, there was just another one waiting for him. And it was a frustrating night offensively, and like it's not something that I'm used to, at least watching with this team. Cam Tyson's always good for 4 or 5 threes. He comes off the bench, 0 points, 0 of 8 shooting. I think he was injured because every time he was caught on the sidelines, he was on the bike warming up. So I imagine that, and we're gonna mention it later, but he has a summer league to prepare for as well. So I'm sure they didn't want to take any chances with him, like Sean East. Moncrief came off the bench, which was interesting. Third in the league in rebounding. Taj Green starting his place. And then the new Honey Badger, Brandon Muntu, started as well. So saw a lot of interesting time of the year for Serta to experiment with the lineup and try some new looks. And maybe it's forecasting that, hey, he's going to have to rely on some other guys and he wants these guys to get reps.
Well, I think the other thing too is I don't know if it's gamesmanship a little bit too on Serta's part, trying to throw something different at Scarborough, knowing that this is a team. I think it's safe to say at this point that your playoff path, whether you're Brampton or anybody else, the playoffs go through Scarborough in the East. I think it's too late in the season for anything to really change dramatically. Scarborough owns the tiebreakers on everybody. So even if they do go on a bit of a lull here, and I don't know what their situation is like for G League and stuff like that, but or sorry, Summer League, but Scarborough pretty much has the East locked in right now. And I think now with that loss, the focus now becomes try to lock up second place if you're Brampton, right? I know they're not going to say that, and they like mathematically there's still a chance, but you're asking for a lot. And the other thing too is, I even look at Scarborough, not saying that they have an easy schedule, but they played a lot of the top teams earlier in the season. They won some close games, and that's credit to them. They had a lot of comeback wins in target time and all those, a lot of character wins is what I'm trying to say. But like they don't play Winnipeg again. They don't come to Winnipeg. So it's some of those things where like some of the challenges that other teams are facing, within the season. I think Scarborough has been a favorable schedule in the sense that, they got everybody at the perfect time and they were ready. Again, this is not knocking Scarborough. They've taken full advantage. You still have to win those games. And they've won pretty much all of them. They have 1 loss, 2 losses on the year, whatever.
2 losses. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're in cruise control right now. But if I'm Brampton, I think you got a lot of good tape because I think the biggest concern is you lost that game. Well, Powell was pretty much out of it. Right. Miles Powell, as you mentioned, getting ejected earlier on in the game. I thought that was going to open up things a lot, but man, Scarborough is a true team. And you were there, like, you experienced the vibes. You were out there dancing with them, after the, taking part in the post game celebration where they dance at the interview. But the vibes are high there. And I think we got a true taste of, their team dynamic and just how deep they are and how much better they are than the rest of the conference.
Yeah, it's funny. Like you look at the body language of Scarborough before the game, and you look at Brampton. Like you could tell that Brampton's really tense, and they're just. I mean, John Ross has mentioned this, and some others, behind the scenes that Brampton is still lacking sort of that leadership. Sean is a real quiet guy, so you can't really rely on him to be the vocal guy. To Taj Green's credit, like he's really vocal, and I think a lot of the reason we saw him start was because he's a guy that really, really, wants to be heard and felt from, right? So, whereas on the Scarborough team, we're talking about a bunch of guys that are first time CBLers, and they're just really embracing that and embracing that identity. And I think the confidence and aura of this team is sort of off the charts. And obviously, I felt it firsthand for the first time in my post game interview. And I'm like, I get it. Like, these guys have found the perfect balance between having fun and being competitive. And when I think you get those two together and you have it meshed in the right way, like, you're a really, really, really hard team to beat. And it all starts on top with their head coach, right? Vernon.
Terrell Vernon, yeah. What a
He's just
great head coach.
he's such a stand-up guy, and he's like,
Yeah.
he's the perfect guy for this team.
I'm a big fan of Terrell Vernon. This guy's got credibility across the country. He's a homegrown guy. I was talking to one coach earlier this year, and was asking him about the U Sports representation this year and just how well the U Sports teams are doing. Like, U Sports coach teams. Terrell Vernon, 2 losses under his belt with Scarborough, taking a team that had no prior experience. I mean, I think that's a huge feather in his cap, what he's been able to do to build this team, considering none of them outside of, Cat Barber, and Charles Bediaco now, I believe he played before too, but when they first started, they had no CBL guys. This guy does a wonderful job at St. FX, in the AUS, in the East Coast. He's coached in Calgary before this, and he was an assistant in the CBL too. I mean, this guy's literally done it all over the country, and you're right. He's set a great standard, a great team dynamic, great culture. And my big question for Scarborough right now is just, what are they going to be like when they actually hit some adversity, right? Like, when they drop 2 games, when they lose that game. And I think it's going to happen. Like, they're going to lose to a Niagara or, an Ottawa.
I mean, we saw
Montreal,
Ottawa, yeah.
right? Like, and well, that's the thing. Like, after Scarborough, like, I say, like, Ottawa, like, it's a bad thing. Like, it's crazy to me that Niagara and Ottawa are like the bottom 2 teams in the East right now, because they're actually really good. And then Montreal, surprisingly, at 500 now in second, like, or third rather. So I think they're behind Brampton.
They're tied with Brampton now.
They're tied with Brampton for second, right? Like,
Mhm.
and we don't talk about Montreal ever. Like, we've not talked about Ottawa and Montreal. And anytime we do, I'm saying exactly that. Like, we don't talk about them. Like, Montreal to me, and you can even check this with Mo Khan out in Montreal. Like, I was on Montreal, early on, just not understanding why the wins weren't coming. And then they made some, like, important personnel moves, right? Where they got rid of the guys that weren't working, and then they brought in, Davion Warren from Winnipeg when he was released, who's been a huge asset to them. I mean, look out for Montreal. Like, that's the thing for me when I talk about Brampton kind of reshaping the focus. You got to worry about the Montreals of the world now. You got to worry about the Ottawas. Niagara will figure it out, but Niagara at this point, I think, is going to be, kind of a limp into the playoffs. Like, they're, if they can get in, they can cause some damage, but for them, it's just to get to the playoffs. But no, what Scarborough's been able to build under Vernon, it's just another feather in his cap. He's seen, a lot of success in his career. This is one of them. I know he would love to get that championship with Scarborough. They look poised to be they are the favorite right now. It's not even close. And they've got some players like, Miles Powell had 7 points. So you take out those 7 points, they still lose, right? Brampton to Scarborough. Yeah. So, I was impressed with, Javon Johnson, 19 points in that one. Akoy Uat had the game finisher, but he played great too as a role player. Frank Mitchell came in off the bench, 14 points. Like, it's, and Tynes the other guy. Yeah, he had 11 points too. And then you talk about the rebounding, like, that was wild. 22 rebounds for Frank Mitchell. To put that in perspective, he had more rebounds than he had minutes played.
That's crazy.
It's wild. He didn't play
averaging
20 minutes.
Like 2. Averaging like 2 rebounds a minute.
He played 19 minutes and 54 seconds and collected 22 rebounds, including 6 offensive boards. This is the what you're dealing with. You can't focus on one area. They have a dude, like, they have the most dominant scorer, and now you can make the argument they have the most dominant rebounder. It's a hard matchup, no matter how you look at it. But hey man, championships aren't won in June. They're won in August, right? There's a whole month left to play here. Anything can happen. We're now seeing, like, Charles Bediaco will be gone, at least for a little while, with Team Canada for the FIBA qualifying window. And a lot of dudes are going to Summer League. So, this could be an opportunity for anybody, but I don't think that helps Brampton either, because as you were alluding to earlier, they got some guys that are going to be going, some important guys that are going to Summer League. So, I mean, this might be where, that start that Brampton had might end up being their saving grace for playoffs just in general, depending on how, their depth is going to be tested now. And I think Alex Serta is going to be tested. Now you don't have your key guys. You don't like you're going to who's gone again? You said you have.
Yeah,
I'll let
Sean
you
East
take
will
it
be
over.
going to Cleveland, and then Cam Tyson's going to be going to Golden State, which is actually John Ross was saying like that's a fit, and that's an opportunity that they're really really excited for. Because Golden State's probably gonna pay up the wazoo to fill out their roster.
Yeah.
There's rumblings about LeBron and AD, and so they're gonna need to get some of these, lower tier guys to fill out the rest of the roster. So here's a real opportunity for Cam Tyson to make an impression out there. He's gonna be playing in I believe it's like the California League, where
Okay.
they have two teams, and then the best of both teams will come together and play in Vegas. So they lose him for a good stint, and there'll be a lot of wear and tear on him when he comes
Yeah.
back, right? And then the elephant in the room, Jameer Nelson, who's just wrapping up his stint in Puerto Rico. He's expected to go to summer league as well, and as you're required to play 5 regular seasons games in order to qualify for the playoffs. So are they able to squeeze that in? Will he have enough juice? So it's really really tough. And then you've talked about these other teams, just forecasting ahead. Montreal currently on a 3-game winning streak. There you've got a back-to-back with Scarborough, so they're going to be really amped up for both those games, Canada Day, and then on Friday as well. And then Scarborough comes over to Brampton, so big 3-game stretch for them in the Eastern Conference, and trying to paint a picture for what the playoffs would potentially look like. And then before that, Brampton has Ottawa on Thursday, who are coming off a 2-game winning streak, and they just added Isaiah Moore as well. So
Yeah, dude.
it's a tough trek uphill.
Like in Ottawa, I just want to I want to make sure I have the schedule correct here. But yeah, because Ottawa, you guys have, and you're hosting Ottawa day after Canada Day. So I feel like
Correct.
I'm kind of shocked. Usually Ottawa has a game on Canada Day, and they are off on Canada Day to go to Brampton. So that's a huge gift for Brampton. Now you don't have to deal with like the Canada Day chaos playing
Mm-hmm.
in Ottawa, which could be a tough place to play for a number of reasons. But they had a convincing win against Niagara, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then kind of giving themselves some breathing room. They're 1 game up on Niagara now too, and kind of looking towards now they're looking towards Brampton and Montreal, right? It's not going to get easier for Brampton. The Jameer Nelson thing, it's just to what you were saying, the 5 games, the gas in the tank, like this dude's been playing in Puerto Rico for the last couple of months. They have a spring summer league out there, and he's like the top guy in his team, averaging a little more than 20 points a game. I believe their season's coming to an end. I remember him saying in one of the last interviews that there was a couple games they needed help. I will admit, as much as we joke how much I love for the Puerto Rican Pro Basketball League that has now creeped its way into my YouTube algorithm, I'm not very familiar with the standings and who's playing where. I'm very CEBL focused now, but I think you're right on a number of fronts. Is it even worth it at this point? It is worth it for 100% for Brampton, and in fact, I think that changes things significantly with Scarborough because you get the reigning, defensive player of the year. You're probably going to have an ugly playoff game in terms of a low-scoring defensive slog, but you can't count on it. I'm getting pessimistic at this point, just seeing how well he played, the quality of basketball in Puerto Rico, and then you throw in the summer league stuff like. It's a lot to come back from, and then to ask a guy to build chemistry with a team he's never played with before. It's just a lot. I would love to see Jameer Nelson Jr. He's one of my favorite players to come to the CBL. True talent, but I think it's going to be on Alex Serta here. First time head coach. I think this is his first challenge. But you have the positioning. I don't think it's not like panic button, if that makes sense for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now these next 2 games, Ottawa is going to be an eye opener for Brampton, because if they lose that game, it's going to be a true testament to what I think is the strongest division or the strongest conference in the CEBL, and it will show the parity. If you get the win, man, that's just one more team. You can kind of just like, hey, we don't have to worry about them anymore, right? Let's separate them. We'll have a couple of games up on them, and turn our focus to the Montreals of the world and try to get some separation on them. And that Scarborough game. I'll say this about the Scarborough game. Looking at the Winnipeg Vancouver matchup, it was very similar, but even more so of a pounding. Winnipeg demolished Vancouver at home by 33 points. Then they went to Vancouver a week later and they lost to Vancouver. And Vancouver didn't have Tyrese Samuel. Yeah, they added a couple guys that had some good games, but anything can happen. And I think now you have Ottawa at home, then you get to go home in your own bed. You get to stick around. You don't have to travel, and then you've got Scarborough coming down the road to play you. And if you build some good momentum against Ottawa, then you win that game against Scarborough. Well, now we're talking a whole different story. Now you have a 2-game win streak, and now you're back in the conversation of, okay, now we're chasing, Scarborough again, because if you can give them their third loss, and you're at that point, you would be 9-6, right? Like now you're in position to at least scare Scarborough a little bit and kind of lock up second place. But you can't look past Ottawa. That's the only thing. We want to jump to that Scarborough game, but I don't think that Scarborough Brampton round 2 game has the same allure that it had round 1 last week. Playing in Scarborough. And it was kind of the same for Winnipeg and Vancouver. It felt that way until suddenly that was the game where it's like, whoa, what's happening? Like Vancouver is supposed to get, spanked right now. They don't have Tyree Samuel. They don't have Mitch Creek. Winnipeg had everybody except Xavier Moon, and they didn't play well. And Vancouver came out with a vengeance and won, right? So it starts with Ottawa, but there's no, man, Isaiah Moore's so good. And just watching them play, like they're just so much better with him. Cleveland is so good. Fudge has been unreal. I think he leads the league in blocks. You talk about, the challenge of going inside. I don't think it's going to get any easier against Ottawa. They've got a strong defensive team, but man, Ottawa's clicking at the right time. They're still not at 500. They're not worried about playoffs right now. I think they just want to even out that record. But they're playing hungry, man. They made some great additions. Justin Mazzulla seems to kind of have his finger on the pulse now of the team and what they're trying to do. Another first-time coach. But here again, we have 2 coaches south of the border, right? That's been kind of the story. We have first-time coaches, from the G League and, the American coaches, and then you've got the Canadian university coaches. It's 2 different tiers this year, and it kind of makes up for their own storylines. And this is a good one. You've got an up-and-coming coach in Justin Mazzulla going up against Alex Serd, another up-and-coming coach. So, and both of them have their work cut out for them because they're 2 good rosters coming in.
It's funny you mentioned Fudge, you mentioned Cleveland, you mentioned Moore, and didn't even mention Javonte Smart, right? But it just speaks to the depth and what they're building over there.
Well, and that's the thing, like Javonte Smart. It's funny sometimes how it's kind of the same with Scarborough. We don't talk about Cat Barber, and Cat Barber is like former MVP. Champion with Scarborough. But now it's like Miles Powell and Frank Mitchell. And I feel like it's kind of the same in Ottawa. It's like we expect that from Brown, and it's always been from Smart. What can they put around Smart? Right. And now it feels like they've got the pieces. Like it's a solid starting 5. And we're starting to see that they've got some depth too. They put together a good team, man. Like Ottawa's another team. I feel like Ottawa is where Brampton was last year, except with a better record, right? They've got new ownership. I think this is the feel out season. I think the changes are going to come with Ottawa. There's definitely from a game day perspective, it looks a little bit better this year than last year. And with more investment, it'll be better and they'll be able to attract better players. And I'm one of those guys that Ottawa is a key market. I think if you're going to have a Canadian league, you need an Ottawa team. It helped the CFL. It was different when Ottawa wasn't there. Now that they have a team in the CFL, it just feels more truly Canadian. It's an important market. So, you're kind of rooting for the Blackjacks in that sense, in terms of just being successful and relevant. And now with that new ownership behind them, who knows what they could do, but man, they can make some noise this year. I think I said it last week on the podcast, one of the teams I don't want to face in the playoffs are Ottawa, and Montreal is the other one, because it just feels like they're playing with house money right now. There's no pressure on these teams whatsoever. All of the pressure is on Brampton and Scarborough hasn't felt the pressure yet. They've been up to every task, every challenge. They've won all the games. And I'm just curious to see if they go into a team, they get a little comfortable and they drop 2 or 3. What is that team's response going to be? It's been all high vibes, man. And that's awesome. But how do you control? You haven't felt the vibes of when things aren't going well. They haven't had that test. And I think it's crucial for Scarborough to have those tests of at least games late in the season or the second half of the season that are close, that they're closing out, but also just tasting how are we going to respond when things aren't going our way? Because it just feels like even when it's a bad game, like you said, it was a little bit ugly. It was swaying Scarborough's way. The bounces were going their way. They were getting the shots. They were getting the looks that Brampton couldn't get. So I feel like that's the only big question mark for me with Scarborough, is just once the adversity hits. And I would prefer to have it now as opposed to the last couple games leading into the playoffs where it starts messing with your psyche. I could be totally wrong. This could be the most dominant team in CBL history, and they don't ever face that adversity because they're just so strong. And honestly, that's kind of how it looks right now. But I want to be the realist and say that, we don't typically see those types of teams go, less than 5 losses in the CBL.
For sure. It's funny just looking at the standings, and you're talking about how the Eastern Conference seems to be a bit stronger than the West at this time. But if you told me that Niagara and Calgary were the bottom two teams, that wouldn't have been on my bingo card at the beginning of the season.
Defending
So
champs, dude. Like, and like the
and
not even the
and we're
defending
still
champs.
hear from them at some point, I think, right?
100%. Like, listen, man, that was last year's final. Like they're not
Yeah,
gonna.
yeah, that is crazy. I just took that in too.
It's like the top two teams last year are the bottom two teams, and it's a little more understandable for Niagara. New coach, back-to-back championships. That there's some wear and tear there as well.
Missing pieces.
At some point, you feel like it's you're not going to win everything forever, and Niagara had an arc like this for a while, right? And then they kind of peaked, hit their 2 championships, and now we're seeing the come down, and that's fine. That's how sports works. And I think if you're Niagara, it's like, yeah, well, not going well this season, but we have 2 championships. But yeah, Calgary, I don't know, dude. I know Brampton doesn't have to worry about Calgary much in any regard because they're in the West.
But Calgary's lone win is against Brampton, ironically enough.
Fair. Yeah. So maybe that the past, let's leave the past in the past. Geez, got to bring that salt up on that wound, but no, Calgary, I kind of feels a little lost right now, but that's another team kind of like, they're like Niagara without the championships. They've been in the Final Four every year since they've been in Calgary. I guess they were due for a down year. It's been a weird year because their ownership purchased another team who's performing better than Calgary is now in Saskatoon. But yeah, no, like Saskatoon is like Montreal in the West. The team that they had a really slow start, didn't look like anything was kind of clicking early on, and it kind of felt like, oh, this could be an ugly season, another ugly season in Saskatchewan, which wouldn't be great. And they've totally turned it around, man. Isaiah Fox, again, one of the other first-time coaches from the G League, from the States, doing a wonderful job now that he's figured out the tone and rhythm of the CBL, getting to know his guys. Winnipeg plays them on Tuesday, so I'm excited for that one because the last time they were here, they're 1-1. They split the season series. But it's a chance for Winnipeg, both teams really to make a statement. Winnipeg to just assert themselves as, the try to reassert themselves as the top team in the West. And if Saskatoon wins, man, like now they're in the conversation of, Western Conference. Like the biggest favor that happened for Winnipeg is that Edmonton beat Saskatoon. So now it's getting a little tighter. Edmonton's still in the conversation, still has some playoff hopes. And Saskatoon, holding on to that third spot. So it's a big game on Tuesday, but this isn't a Winnipeg podcast, so enough about that.
I was going to give you your corner, but you've sprinkled enough in here that we're good now.
yeah, totally. But no, this is I'm excited for this weekend. Listen, Brampton was, what were they, 7-0 to start?
6-0, yeah.
7-1. It's been tough. You've lost 5 games now. That's a alarming losing streak. You're 1 game away from 500, and if you lose the next game, you will be 500, and Ottawa is right on your heels with all the momentum. So again, tough loss in Scarborough. Scarborough did a great job at maintaining that lead. You can't look to that Sunday game. You got to take care of the business on Thursday when Ottawa rolls to town, because if you lose that game to Ottawa, it's a totally different conversation. And then I would have the panic button nearby. If this team, after a 7-1 start, is 514 games into a 24 game season, that's the alarm. Again, rather have this 5 game losing streak now, right, where there's still time to tinker and figure things out and you're not totally desperate. But I wouldn't want it to be a 6 or 7 game losing streak.
Yeah, massive blessing in disguise that the team started the way it did. And we've talked and alluded to it, the fact that, a lot of it was front loaded with home games, so they were able to take advantage of that. But yeah, now they kind of have to tinker. And, talking to some folks behind the scenes, someone specifically said to me that if they lose that game on Saturday against Scarborough, there might be some sort of a roster overhaul, right? Because you've got to fill in the gaps that are going to be left by Sean and Cam for the unforeseeable future. And I think also what kind of works in their favor is, you were supposed to be paying Jameer Nelson all this time, so there's a little bit of wiggle room in terms of trying to throw that money at someone else in case he doesn't come. But it's just trying to find the right person and the right pieces in order to keep this ship afloat over the next couple of weeks. But as mentioned, Ottawa on Thursday, and then Scarborough again Sunday, and then hopefully Matt comes back too, and we're going to be able to break down how that stretch was, and maybe that's why he hasn't come back. I know it's pretty dark for him, and he doesn't seem too high on Brampton right now.
He's a high vibes guy. This is all orchestrated by him for sure. I want to say one note though, D. Yeah. Sometimes Summer League offers gems to the CEBL. There's other guys, they need to fill those spots, and they're thinking, okay, I didn't want to spend my whole summer, but I'll spend a few weeks out in, Toronto and, make a few bucks while I'm here. And then they turn out to be studs. That's what happened to Winnipeg last year. It overhauled their whole roster and made for some tough decisions come playoffs. But Trey Scott, former starter for the Brooklyn Nets, is in Winnipeg because last year he came while other guys went to the Summer League. And then they got Will Richardson, who ended up putting pressure on Terry Roberts, who had gone to Summer League, right? And it created internal competition within the team and some tough roster decisions. But right now, if you're Brampton, you're welcoming those tough roster decisions if you are blessed with these diamonds in the rough that end up, making their name in the CEBL. So as much as you're losing guys, it's a huge opportunity for management to find those diamonds in the rough for those guys they were, kicking rocks on, wondering if they were going to take them. Now you don't have a choice. We need to fill those roster spots, get the best imports in, and you might see some surprises. So not always a bad thing when Summer League comes around.
I like that. A parting of optimism. I'm a half glass full guy, so it's nice to have two of us on here for a change.
It could also all go to hell.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's that too, yeah.
Well, Joey, thanks for taking the time to chat with me and filling in and putting your superhero cape as you always do for us here on the podcast. But yeah, that's a wrap on episode 8 of the Target Score Brampton podcast. Again, thanks to King of the Slap Bomb, going back to back like Jordan. He's the Pippin to my Jordan here on the podcast. And reminder again, the Honey Badgers play on Thursday. Me and Matt will be on the call with our guy Joe, and then you can catch Matt on Sunday. That's a game off for me. But I'm actually going to try to make an effort to go and sit courtside and watch the game as a fan, which I'm looking forward to. So,
that'd be fun.
I'll be sharing that experience on the podcast as well. So again, episodes drop on Wednesday every week. Check out every new episode, and hopefully we'll get a guest next week. Unfortunately, we're unable to put that through this week, but you know what? We kind of just wanted to keep it, zenned out and play it safe this week and give those guys a week off as well from our questions and us grilling them. But don't forget to follow at Target Score Pod on Instagram, and then at Target Score Podcast on YouTube as well. And of course, tune into the Winnipeg and Vancouver podcasts with our guys on the network as well. Joe, any parting shots?
No, you've been great. This is a real tall performance from you. And Bonomi, let's get home, man.
Yeah,
let's get home, guy.
Bring it home. Yes, come home.
Your friends don't want you surfing on their couch anymore. I know they said you could stay as long as you want. They didn't mean it. All your friends are like, why is Bonomi still here, man? Like, just, you got to get home. Come on home.
If he doesn't come back next week, I'm going to Colin Coward and going solo on the pod. So I pray in advance for our fans, because that's going to be
the hot takes.
That's going to be a long listen. All right, well, folks, thanks for tuning in, and enjoy this week of hoops.
Thanks for having me.